On the second floor of a popular casino in Nevada, a man finishing his long night shift turned the corner towards a hallway and noticed a very strange and massive box. A box that had seemingly appeared out of nowhere. It was a large and metal, gray cuboid with a small attachment near the top. It had no power cord and no visible power switch, but it did have one thing on the outside. An odd set of 28 metal switches, all of which but one were toggled downwards. The man was reasonably confused. He was completely certain that he had not heard any large equipment being delivered all throughout the night, and he was sure that he would hear such a large box being moved around. But the weirdest part about this box is that he was also 100% sure that that creepy gray box wasn't there an hour ago. Whoever or whatever had left this box here did it very quickly, and they had also meticulously separated it from the carpet with 4 blocks of wood on each corner. Upon further inspection, the blocks of wood sunk deeply into the carpet, suggesting that this box was ridiculously heavy. But after inspecting the box a bit further, the man realized that there was an envelope on the ground next to the box. It was titled with a very simple and ominous name: Harvey's Management. The man, who was now reasonably concerned, said to the custodian that was near him at the time, quote, "Don't touch anything and don't let anybody mess with this box. I'll be right back." He went to get casino security, and the casino security then went on to summon multiple sheriff deputies and the fire department to the scene. Once everyone arrived, they poked this mysterious envelope with a broomstick to ensure that it wasn't booby-trapped, and then they grabbed it. What then read on the pages of the letter inside the harrowing envelope was a harsh and horrifying warning to the Harvey's casino team. Stern warning to the management and bomb squad. Do not move or tilt this bomb, because the mechanisms that are controlling the detonators inside will set off at a movement of less than 0.01 of the open-end Richter scale. If exploded, this bomb contains enough TNT to severely damage Harrah's across the street. This should give you an idea of the amount of TNT that is inside this box. We demand $3 million in used 100 bills. Shocked by the absolute absurdity of the situation, the people at the scene realized that they were dealing with a much more severe situation than they thought. And based on what they would find out about the bomb further into the letter, to their horror, they realized that the man who had planted this bomb here had literally thought of every single possible outcome. This bomb that was sitting on the second floor of Harvey's casino in Nevada was going to be absolutely undefusable. Do not try to flood or gas out this bomb. There is a float switch and an atmospheric pressure switch set at 26 to 33. Both are attached to detonators. Do not try to take this bomb apart. The flathead screws on the outside are also attached to triggers, and as much as a 1/4 or 3/4 turn of the screw will cause an explosion. In other words, this bomb is so sensitive that any movement inside or outside will cause it to explode. Quickly after reading this, the bomb squad arrived, and the staff and fire department evacuated all of the guests from the building. They had realized how difficult it was going to be to handle this bomb. You see, the letter continues as follows. This bomb can never be dismantled or disarmed without causing an explosion. Not even by the creator. Only by proper instruction can it be moved to a safe place to be exploded. There are 3 automatic timers set for 3 different explosion times. Only if you comply with the instructions in this letter will you be given instructions on how to disconnect the first 2 automatic timers. The man who had constructed this bomb had seemingly covered and thought about every single possible way that the bomb squad would try to outsmart him. But it's still worth it to note that at this point, it technically wasn't confirmed that the bomb even posed a threat at all. There was a chance that this entire situation with the box was all a massive bluff and lie to get a massive payout. So it was important that the FBI and bomb squad handled the situation very carefully. Even checking if it's a legitimate threat at all poses a risk to many, many lives. So after thinking about it, the bomb squad ultimately decided that it would probably be best to just just ignore the letter altogether. They started x-raying the box from every angle to see what was inside and to confirm the danger itself, all under the idea that it could explode at any moment. So they waited alongside it and continued to process the x-ray of the insides. On top of this, they ran many tests on the bomb to detect any irregularities or evidence of its creator, all of which resulted in pretty much no significant evidence being found. Finally, with a stethoscope, they attempted to hear proof of its inner workings, proof of its inner heartbeat. This would be absolutely crucial in deducing if this thing was truly running. And since electrical components are nearly silent, a stethoscope was their only chance of hearing it. They carefully put the stethoscope against the box to hear, and as they waited for a sound, everyone in the room became absolutely and ear-piercingly silent. At first, this silence was deafening, and not a single sound was heard from within the box, a relief that it might just be a crazy bluff after all. However, after listening just a bit closer, one of the men in the room had thought they had heard something super tiny. So they dialed in and listened harder. They waited and waited for the harrowing sound of a bomb's mechanisms twisting and turning. And after listening closer and closer, almost to the point of pure delusion, a tiny, super quiet little whirring noise was heard from deep within the box. It was confirmed. Something inside this box was moving. This was enough proof that an active bomb could be in this city, so the Nevada National Guard evacuated all of the surrounding buildings based on the notion that this bomb could, quote, severely damage Haras across the street. And this was when things got a bit more serious. There were now real human lives at stake here, and any wrong move from this point on would prove to be catastrophic. Moments exactly like this are where today's sponsor, Ground News, becomes an invaluable tool. In an age where media narratives can vary drastically depending on where you look, Ground News ensures that you're never left in the dark. If you are someone who values staying informed with accuracy and perspective, Ground News is perfect for you. It's not just about what's being reported, but how it's being reported, giving you the tools to think critically and uncover the truth behind the headlines. Whether it's coverage on global events, political debates, or local crises, Ground News helps cut through the noise to show you the bigger picture. Take the Harvey's casino hostage situation, for example. News like this could have easily been reported in many different ways, making it vital for safety to uncover the exact truth. Take also, for example, this recent article on Ground News. They aggregated 261 articles on the topic, providing a visual breakdown that reveals political biases and the factuality of each source. Factuality is calculated by 3 independent organizations, which go as far as examining language and framing. One feature I personally find invaluable is their blind spot, which actively shows you which stories aren't being covered by certain political parties or news outlets. This ensures you are not just consuming an echo chamber of information, but getting a holistic view of what's happening around the world. I personally use Ground News alongside many of my friends and family because it's important that we think critically about the information that is being spread to us. If this resonates with you, I can't recommend Ground News enough. Check them out at ground.news/SPDS and use my link to save 40% off on their Vantage plan, the same plan that I use for unlimited access to all their features. Trust me, once you try it, you'll wonder how you ever stayed informed without it. On top of evacuating the civilians, they also emptied the casino of any cash, and then proceeded to cut off any lines of natural gas that were entering the building. After they confirmed the noise within the box, the X-ray pictures finally came through. X-ray pictures that were pretty unassuming. All they could confirm was that some of the parts mentioned in the letter seemed to be accurate within the X-ray, lessening the chance that this is a bluff by a lot. The top part of the box seemed to hold a bunch of complex wiring and switches, while the bottom part of the box held the majority of the mechanisms that detect outside intervention. On the X-ray, these were just a bunch of ominous cylinders. Nonetheless, now that it was essentially confirmed that the bomb was active, they had to decide on what to do with it. they definitely could follow the instructions and give the man the money. It's important to note again that the biggest problem here wasn't that the bomb was so secure and tight that it was impossible to get into, it was the timers. No one knew when the timers were started, so working around it was incredibly stress-inducing and time-constricting. It seemed like the most genius part of this bomb wasn't the timers or how secure it was. Instead, it seemed like the actual most genius part was the uncertainty that surrounded its potential. The 28 switches on the outside could have been helpful, but they would have to cooperate with the man to get the code that will delay the timers. And there would also be no way to tell that the code was even reliable in the first place. Again, they could pay the money, but this sentiment was very looked down upon by many people that were angered by such a situation to begin with, especially Harvey, the man who ran the casino himself. But based on the nature of the situation, it seemed like cooperating with the letter was their only option. However, that didn't mean that they were going to go down without a plan of their own. You see, the letter goes on as follows. The money is to be delivered by helicopter. The helicopter pilot is to park at 2300 hours as close as possible to the LTA building light at the Lake Tahoe airport. It is to face the east. The pilot has to be alone and unarmed. The pilot is to get out and stand by the chain link fence gate. He is to wait for further instructions, which will be delivered by a taxi that will be hired. The driver will know nothing. The instructions may also be delivered by a private individual, or the message will be through a nearby public phone at exactly 10 hours. These instructions of how the helicopter would deliver the money were so confidently detailed. It was as if the man was without a doubt confident in the bomb's ability to beat out the FBI. But at this point it didn't matter, as a special agent entered an FBI helicopter, ready to follow the letter's instructions. However, as mentioned earlier, they had a plan of their own now. This wasn't an act of full submission to this mysterious man. Instead, the special agent landed in a different prearranged spot at a ski resort, where different agents began to load the $3 million onto the helicopter. They strapped bags that were filled with similarly colored plain paper cut to the same size and same proportions as real money, and covered those fake bills with a layer of real bills to trick the man. After they had set these fake decoy money bags, another agent crouched behind the pilot's seat to make sure he was protected through the entire altercation, completely ignoring the letter's request to bring no one. The helicopter has to be filled up with gas. Do not come armed with any weapon. Do not bring a shotgun rider. All radio channels will be monitored. You are to have no communication with anyone after you reach the airport. Do not try to be a hero. Arlington is full of them, and they can't even smell the flowers. Follow the orders strictly. You will make 5 stops, none of which will be at an airfield. You will have ample lighting for landing. All sites are fairly level, but one has about 2 degrees pitch. There will be a clearance of more than 200 feet radius. We don't want any trouble, but we won't run away if you bring it. Happy landing. The special agent landed the helicopter at the designated airport mentioned in the letter, and followed instructions as he got out. A while later, the telephone that was mentioned in the letter rang.
Hello? Your instructions are located beneath the table in front of you. You have 3 minutes.
There was no table in front of the agent, so he searched far and wide trying to find this letter. Scared that the time limit would be an issue, the agent started running his hands along the bottom surface of random metal shelves, and miraculously felt a letter attached to one. A similar letter to the first one read the following. After you read these instructions, open the helicopter door and shine a strong flashlight through the interior inch by inch. If the helicopter is a 4-seater, fold the backs of the front seats down for clear visibility. After you have done this, you are ready for takeoff. Make sure there is no one near the helicopter and that no one gets into the helicopter. We are watching you, and if you don't obey, don't bother to take off. From the time you receive the telephone call, you have 3 minutes to get airborne. Follow Highway 50 to the west on the right-hand side in a straight line. Don't go over 500 feet above the elevation of the terrain. Approximately 15 miles west of the airport, start looking for a strobe light on your right. A radar gun will be aimed at a 45-degree angle in your direction, and will turn on the strobe automatically when it catches you in its range. Again, no communication with anybody or by any means. You have 4 minutes to land after the strobe turns on, because after 4 minutes, all lights will go off automatically. Land facing south. Approximately 200 feet south will be an envelope with further instructions nailed on a tree 6 feet off the ground. The agent returned to the helicopter and followed all of the instructions that were asked of him in the letter, deliberately shining his flashlight everywhere but onto the man that was hiding in the helicopter. He took off, stayed below 500 feet, followed Highway 50 for 15 miles, and searched for this so-called strobe light that would appear to guide him. This was a long shot. He began to fly around the area searching harder for this light. A group of FBI agents in unmarked cars followed the helicopter below as he searched. But he was having problems. No matter how long he searched for, he could not find this promised strobe light. He continued to circle the area and watched for a while, but found nothing. For more than an hour, he searched to no avail, so he went back to the airport to wait for a phone call from the man, but got nothing. You see, the letter wasn't exactly crystal clear on where or how he was supposed to see this strobe light. It said follow the highway, so the agent figured he would go to the highway and follow it 15 miles to the site. But it turns out that the letter probably meant to go to the highway then follow it by flying straight ahead until he reached the destination. He was at no point anywhere near the site. But now that the communication with the man was lost, there was no telling what would happen. The letter previously had said something pretty important. It mentioned that there would be no negotiation or re-extension of the time. In the case that they failed to cooperate, they will not contact each other again. However, in the case that they don't cooperate, they said that they had the quote, means to get another bomb in. Finally, after realizing that the FBI wasn't going to show up to the agreed area, the man named John Birgis disappointedly unloaded his guns of any bullets, then waited with his group for the rest of the night on this cold mountain. They left in the morning when no one arrived. They then, in the morning, arrived at a gas station in town and called the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. You see, they had seen on the local news station that the hotel, who was still confused and standing by, were still willing to cooperate with the extortionists. So they called the sheriff department to tell them to flip the 5th switch on the front panel. This was a quote, dummy switch that would do nothing but buy them time to hatch out another plan to get this money. On the inside with the bomb squad still acted with caution. Again, there was no way to trust anything that the man said, other than the fact that this bomb was active. If they did flip the switch, they would have no way to tell if it would blow it up. But at this point, it had been more than the 24 hours stated in the letter, so the bomb squad figured they had a little bit of time to figure things out. So they set up a control center outside of the casino and called bomb experts around the nation for help in defusing this impossible contraption. They discussed a huge amount of different ways to take this bomb down, but it seemed like John Birgis had thought of every single outcome, so they had to get a bit more risky with it. They thought up a suicide bomb plan that not even they were sure would work. The idea was to use a propelled explosive device to blow a hole of focused jet energy that would cut through the bomb like an instant knife, all of which would happen in less than 1 millisecond. The hope was that this charge would sever the wires that connect the explosive charge to the mechanisms. This was an incredibly risky plan, but it seemed to be their only option. Birgis seriously decked out this bomb with every single possible mechanism, so they confirmed that they would do the explosive charge method and evacuate everyone. After they evacuated every single person of the area, they set up the charge. They were going to remotely detonate it and hope for the best. Everyone in the area waited behind the safe evacuation line and watched quietly and anxiously at the detonation of this bomb. It actually got to a point where spectators even gathered to watch the explosion as an event. Now that everyone was safe and sound and no one was gonna get hurt, the explosion had turned into a spectacle. They were all waiting to see if this bomb would explode or not. And as they waited patiently, the bomb squad was ready to detonate this bomb for good. It was time that this whole ordeal was over. John Birgis, the man who had planted this bomb here, was an avid gambler who had lost all of his life savings at the big casinos. After a long list of unfortunate circumstances in his life and gambling all of his money away, he decided that he would hatch out this plan to extort $3 million. The bomb, which was detonated due to another failsafe set by Birgis, had completely decimated the lower part of the building. But the building didn't fall over. The bomb squad actually blunted the initial explosion with a layer of sandbags. But still, the place was struck with a 60-foot gaping hole in its side. It was still pretty unimaginably destroyed, with wire, concrete, and metal twisting around. Miraculously, however, they figured the damage would be repairable. The bomb itself ended up having multiple more failsafes, stuff like spring-loaded screws, pressure switches, metal foil, and everything else mentioned in this video, all of which at any moment could have exploded and killed everybody. After this, Birgis saw the news of the bomb exploding, and he, including the people around him, were devastated. That was his last chance at gaining back the money he had lost, and it failed. Over the following days, an intense investigation traced the group's vehicle to the mountain at the time, and eventually, after a long list of leads, witnesses, and interrogation of Birgis himself, he was caught. He was found guilty on 8 counts and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. His investigation is a story in itself. Roughly 14 years later, however, Birgis died of liver cancer in a correction center. The FBI now uses the bomb as an example of an incredible feat of tech. This bomb was so intense and complex that even to this day, it remains as a formidable thing to even think about defusing. However, if all of that wasn't miraculous enough, the simple fact that no one was hurt in this situation is incredible. There were so many ways for this bomb to accidentally explode, and the fact that not one of those triggers accidentally went off is what turns this story to a crazy interesting story instead of a tragic event. The people that initially worked around this nightmare of a contraption when real innocent lives were present undoubtedly risked their own lives, and while it turned into sort of a spectacle and event along the way, it's truly fortunate that nobody was hurt.